All right, everybody, welcome back for episode number 5 of Lions Life. First one to say I hope you all enjoyed our last episode. First ever guest was Coach Price. I thought that was good itself. We're working on the Zoom stuff and figuring out how to make those episodes the best. Looking at every other episode, going to have a guest on. So this is kind of like the filler episode where Mark and I are just back in the barn. And then next episode we'll have a guest. And if you didn't notice this last episode, we released it on Friday. We're going to start releasing all of them on Friday now. It just seems like that's what the general public or following wants, so we're going to listen to you guys and go ahead and do that. But getting into segment number 1, we have school ending, and it's All-Star time, and obviously Little League is going into All-Stars, like I just said with that, and then travel ball as well. But I guess really we're going to get into the load management with All-Stars and travel ball and really how the few weeks in All-Stars, if you overthrow, then go throw into travel ball, overwork a kid, whatever. So these few weeks could really go with the kid's progress and whatever. So I'll let Mark dive into all of that real quick.
Well, it's like you said, I feel like anymore, we look at All-Stars and we look at the travel ball season kicking in full gear. When we're talking about that today, I guess the first age group we're going to talk about is more like your 7-year-olds to 12-year-olds. And that's, you hear of Little League elbow and you hear of all these kind of things. When we're starting in the barn, we usually kick around December, and I always kind of chuckle because I'm a big advocate of kids' arms need a break. I know there's people out there, hey, throw year round, do this, do that. And, I've never been an advocate for that. We're 25 years into this place. I've never been a person, I think, that's why. If I was a sole survivor off of my business and you're just doing pitching, then you got to have people throwing year round if you're going to keep a paycheck. I've never, we shut down in here in October, depending on the age when that is. As you get a little older, there is some late camps in October. What we try to do is start up in December, go through a program. Nobody touches that mound till, January. If you got some college kids coming in, they're on a different program, but usually a high school kid to their senior year, it's a program. I watch these people throwing pins in November. You kind of scratch your head. When I got a 17-year-old hen not on the mound, and you got kids that are 10 and people out there throwing kids on the mound just to make a paycheck. To me, that's kind of not where it's at. But you go into All-Stars this week, and that's where the pitch management and the arm programs, and is it a focus? Is it something that needs to be done? A lot of times in travel ball, you play Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You hope you don't play Friday. A lot of it's Saturday, Sunday. And you got the big argument of, a lot of coaches just have enough players for a team. So you might be asking, and this is where it gets touchy and argumentative, but if I have a kid on Saturday, the part that gets overlooked is you usually play 2 games on Saturday. A lot of times it's 85 to 90 degrees. And you're asking that kid to play a position. So as soon as they get to the field, if they're not pitching that day.
Especially if turf, that adds another 10 degrees.
Turf, and you're boiling out there. Some days if it rains the night before and then it gets hot. So you got let's say 12. You got a 12-year-old in travel ball, and he plays catch to get loose for that game. And then you bring him in because he pitches the 6th and 7th. But he throws a side session to get hot. So now he's throwing 20, 25 in the pen, and he throws another 40 on the side, but the coach tells the parent, hey, he only threw 40 today. Well, he didn't only throw 40. If he threw 20 in the pen to get ready, most of the time it's 20 to 25 at that age. He played catch before. He threw 3 innings, which means he threw 5 to 8 pitches in between innings. So there's another 25.
Yeah, I think that's the one a lot of people get lost
They skip
on.
it because they want to skip it because if you tell a parent that he only threw 40 in the game, then that's all he threw. But no, that's not what he threw. He threw 80. You bring him back tomorrow and you got him for 4 more. Throws another 60 because they're telling the parent, hey, he threw 100. He threw 40 and he threw 60. Well, you didn't add in that he also threw a side session. He threw another bullpen. There is a reason that when the Orioles owned Corbin Burns, he didn't throw 40 one day and 60 the next.
Who's getting Tommy John now?
Yeah, and but he's a 30-year-old that's his first arm injury, and anymore in baseball, you're starting to see it, but not at 12. And then you hear at 15, hey man, he had Little League elbow, and now he has Tommy John, and we don't backtrack it. You see a lot of these travel ball guys are like, this is the new thing, man. Like hey, congratulate when one of their kids. This is what I've been kicking. When one of your kids signs on a travel ball organization and you post it everywhere, why don't you post it when the kid doesn't, when he gets cut, or when he's in the portal because he didn't play? You're not seeing a lot of that, But to revert back to like Little League now, you got a kid that might have played 2 or 3 games a week to now that's going to all of a sudden you get that coach and they're going to practice 27 out of the next 30 days, or make the gauntlet run of 27, 28. Did they build the arm up for that?
No.
And you know that answer.
Yeah, just to go to, because everybody wants to go to Little League World Series. That's the end all be all.
And when you look at the end of the Little League World Series, that's got to be a blast. And I remember I had a couple kids in here who they went to the Little League World Series, and you can hear them and talk about it. But like, that's a great experience. But when you're in a small Little League, sometimes you got to set and be realistic of. And at the end of the Little League World Series, what is the statistic of how many of them actually go and do something? I would like to see the statistic of not the kids that played in the World Series, but what did the kids do that, if you're in different states, Pennsylvania, I forget how many games they got to play to get to that.
Yeah.
So how many innings, if the kid threw 30 in Little League and he throws another 30 in All-Stars, that kid's at 60 innings by All-Stars. Damn well a lot of them are playing travel ball. Yeah. Are we throwing 10 and 12-year-olds 100 and 120 innings a year? I mean, that's the part that as we get around to this season, if you're a parent, you got to take a step back and say, what is, and somebody here can probably say, well, what's he, he coached travel. I also coached All-Stars for a year, and I knew that I coached Little League, and before the season started, I told the Little League coaches, my kids will not play All-Stars, and I know Cannon, even somebody called and was like, hey, Cannon, I don't give a shit. We're not playing, and did we miss something? I don't know. Is that a great camaraderie thing? Absolutely. But so is high school baseball. So is college baseball. So is Legion baseball. Give them a chance to make it, there's going to be an all-star team in every area, and that's the good of it. That's the bad of it. But what makes all-stars and travel ball the worst is parents.
Yeah. But I wanted to go ahead. Obviously, arm care, you preach it all the time. But whenever you have kids that are going to All-Stars and travel, how important those few, even though it's a few weeks, just how important keeping up with your arm care is and your routine throughout that long process.
Well, I guess, we had a kid in here one day. He come in and he said, for instance, he pitched Tuesday. And he come in here and he wanted me to check. I said, well, I can't check your arm today. You pitched yesterday. Yeah. Today's not a day for you to get on the mound. And then the next thing I find out, he throws again Thursday. So when you're in, I think the biggest, if you're worrying about the scaffolding process of arm strength, that's an age thing. It's an age bracket thing. But a kid has to strengthen his arm. There has to be strength days, throw days, field days, pen days. There's many things that go into arm care. There has to be a pre-routine and a post-routine. And then what age is that? And what is the kid's, I used to say that the worst thing that happened to Little League and the best thing that happened to Little League was the Little League World Series. But if you watch it, it's a curveball fest.
Yeah.
And then, but you got some people that preach that you shouldn't be throwing a curveball at 10, but yet they're doing announcing of the game. So those are all kinds of things that it's just a double-edged sword and it's a touchy situation. But if a kid is struggling with something on the mound, why is he throwing a curveball? Because that is something that should, until you're repetitive and mechanically correct, and as well in here that I believe that, I don't let anybody throw them until a certain age, and a lot of it's the maturation process. But yeah, if you have a curveball at 11 and you have a fastball, you're gonna win a lot of your games, because when do we sit and teach a 11-year-old to see spin?
I had a curveball at 11.
Right. There you go. But those are the things that we're listening to now, that you're just going to watch curveballs and you sit and wonder. But, you've been in here long enough, and I hear other guys preach this. If you got we've said this in the podcast, if you got a 12-year-old and he's dominating with a curveball, and he might be here on level 4, and there's another kid on level 2, skinny body, not sure, let's see where they're both at level 10. Because a lot of times that's the beauty of this game. You just blow by that kid, and, he'll go back and look. And, those are questions as a scout you ask yourself, how long you been throwing that hammer?
Yeah. I mean, I had whenever I was in Little League, you always have your people who like are Little League legends and everybody thinks they're going to go pro, and I had a few of those and they didn't even make it to college.
And that we laugh at that, but if you're a parent listening to this today, my advice is don't set. Now, if that kid can rake
Yeah.
and he plays the game hard, there's kids out there. I remember Dante Bichette's kid that was in the Little League World Series, and you're like, oh, he's got that. But he also had the genetics of a dad that hit
Bellinger.
40. Yeah, those are guys that they're there for a reason. They're good players. They had bloodlines, but you'll see those kids. You always see the big, strong kid that's got a mustache. Which is nothing against him, but eventually he's just stronger than everybody. A lot of times in Little League, you always have the little dogs, but a lot of times stronger, bigger, stronger, faster. It's no different at 18. It's no different at 22. It's no different at 27. Just so happens at 12, you got puberty to non-puberty. I mean, you got a lot of aspects in it. But, what's the worst part we're going to see? What drives me nuts is when, the shirts, the names of the shirts on the back, and, a kid gets hit up the middle. Hey, way to go, that's part of it that drives you nuts. And let the kids play the game, set in the crowd, and it becomes chaotic. And then you watch kids melt.
Yeah, I think Little League, the All Stars of it had at one point like that cool like community aspect of
I loved it
at like the high school and stuff. But now as you see it kind of deteriorate all around, it really has like lost that part of it because it used to be where the whole community came out for the All Stars and everything. But it's really just died out. It seems like, especially with travel ball.
I think there's little leagues that it's still there.
Yeah.
But and travel ball is dying out some because it's watered down. So we're kind of in that, but that's where it kind of is it this, is it that? You watch a kid, hope to God we don't see it a lot, but you'll see a kid play short, then he'll pitch, then he'll catch, then he'll come back. Where is the development for the kid, or is it let's win at all cost?
Yeah, and you see like I remember, and you probably remember when the Philly scout team was like huge, and that was when
I used to deal with them down in Georgia.
Yeah.
Loaded.
But once that got put onto YouTube a few years ago, I think like 5 years ago, that was really like the prime of Little League, where like everybody then is trying to beat them. But that's just a team that's just loaded with talent, and so a lot of teams now, like I mean, you've talked about it, the Canes, like they do it right with everything and all their funding they get and whatever. But a lot of people just try to replicate what they're doing, or like what the Philly scout team did with their own scout team.
Well, everybody wants a coach, I don't even say coach. I told you the year I coached the 15U national team, that was the easiest job I ever had.
Yeah.
It's your day to pitch at 89
well,
and 90.
Those scout teams they're
loaded, and they got to be fun. But the word coach,
yeah,
you're just kind of the guy that gets to walk in and you're racing a Ferrari against a Datsun. It's just not. It's not a fair race.
Yeah, and but going off that with the talking about the older teams, for older kids that are going into the travel circuit and whatnot, and they're like the 15, 16-year-old age, really just getting out there for the scouts for the first time. As a former scout and all that, what advice do you have to those kids looking to make a name or just penciled in on one college's clipboard?
Well, when a team goes down, your big tournaments, there's Alabama, you got ones in Florida. Georgia is the epicenter, it seems like, in summer. New Jersey's another big one. You got 400 teams going in there. Yeah. So you got scouts everywhere. But the thing that I don't think parents understand, and I hope you hear this, 99% of the time, if your kid's in the field and nobody they might look at the name in this, but a lot of those guys are already in there. They know what they're heading for. They know what they're looking for. I would leave here and drive to Atlanta, and Cannon would lose his mind because I would start talking on the phone. And until we got to Georgia, you're setting up your pitching staff to the colleges that need this. What do you got? What do you need? What do you have? There's a lot of that mismatch going on. And, they're not, you hate to say this, but a lot of times in Georgia, that's your bigger hitters. But if you might, I hear a lot of, hey, we're on a travel team. And then you're playing in tournaments where there's no colleges.
Yeah.
So at 16 years old, that's what separates are you playing on a team that you're calling traveling because you drive 2 hours away? Or you got a guy that's taking you all these tournaments? Or are you playing on a team that colleges are following and watching? Not because you posted his stats, not because you wrote in Facebook that he was 4 for 6 this week with 2 home runs. Nobody cares. Like, there is a side of social media that is important, but over the next 2 months, and I try to just use East Coast. When we go to Atlanta, you might have one day. If I call and let's say UNC Charlotte and a couple other schools are looking for arms. Hey man, I got this kid pitching on Wednesday. They're only coming Wednesday.
Yeah.
Now,
and you would fly in pitchers just for one day specifically.
Yeah, one day if you need an arm, and and you might say, hey, I got this guy coming in. These are and I'm not going to lie. Now that I'm kind of out of it, there might be 75% of the time I'll be in Atlanta walking through with my team, and I might see. I'm not going to say the coach, but let's just say it's a buddy of mine that coached in the SEC. Hey, Shives, you got anything? No, I don't have an SEC caliber arm. But maybe the following year I did have an SEC arm or an SEC player. Hey, you got anything? Yes. Now he knows you're not full of shit. Where a lot of these guys are like, hey, this used to make me laugh. We would have 25 guys, and there would be one of our aces would pitch, and then the director would write, today we played in front of 40 college Division I schools, and that doesn't mean that they were there to watch your kid.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the older business hard, because they're not there. Those college scouts you see, they're not walking around watching the game to see. They already kind of are in an insinuation of what they're there for, what they're looking for. Names start to come in and out. PBR has helped that.
Yeah.
Perfect Game has helped that. Some of those sites, exposure and things like that but this is a gauntlet run. The expectations. If I'm a parent and you want some advice, and hey dads, if you have the bucket hat and the stopwatch, not a good look. Not a great look for your kid. The mom that's screaming your number because you finally got a hit on day 4, not a great look.
Yeah.
Walk in, be quiet, be humble, have your cooler, mind your business, carry your own bag. Whether it was a good day or a bad guy, stay your course, understand what's going on. And to the parents in this is it a lot of times. If he has a shitty day, don't sit and dwell on it. You don't think that, I can promise you whatever parent thinks they're stressed right now, the next 6 to 8 weeks of travel ball is grueling. They just finished high school, and they're trying to get something. And then you get a kid on the team that commits, and then the stress level goes from here to there. And, they're trying to find a fit. They don't need you. Parents, don't write a check that your kid can't cash, or don't do something like Facebook and things all that where people get tired of that shit and they end up not liking your kid. And they don't even know him.
The best thing is, because we have Facebook, because I'll go on for the foundation, is I saw one that said, I know nobody cares, but I'm going to post it
That's
anyway.
the best line of them all, isn't it?
But I'm not on Facebook, but I finally saw that and said, I know nobody cares, but I'm going to post it anyways. And I was like, well, why post it then?
Yeah, well, and I get the being a proud parent and
Yeah.
the proud side of it. Sometimes, if you've been doing that since that kid's 12, at 17, I don't care who they are or they're lying to your face. People get tired of that shit.
Yeah.
They get tired of it.
We're going to go ahead and get into segment 2 now. Graduation season, as we just had my graduation at Hood College this past week that passed, and so everybody's graduating now, closing their chapters, whether graduating from high school, college, whatever it may be. Army, I just went down and saw Jesse Hart graduate from Airborne School.
Proud of that guy.
That was cool.
That guy, he looks the part, man. There's a kid that Clear Spring should hang a hat on that shit. I don't know if he ever threw an inning in high school, but I'm gonna tell you right now, out of the kids that ever come out of this place, Jesse Hart makes me proud, man.
Yeah, and no, that was a cool thing itself. So graduation is everywhere, but going to ask you, obviously the bittersweet moments, because in graduations everything gets brought up about those ones that aren't there and whatnot,
Sure.
and you start thinking about them. So in those bittersweet moments, I wanted to ask you how you handle things and how you kind of go about those, because obviously they're amazing and whatnot, but they still bring back old memories and whatnot.
Well, I watched. You watch people struggle, and and I've learned that I'm not the only person that has lost a child in the process. But I know we give a scholarship now, and my daughter, instead of watching Cannon walk across the stage this year, she's going to be 21 here in a couple of weeks. She's standing up on the stage, and she's a damn rock star with that. But she is announcing his scholarship to 2 kids that he grew up with this year, which was bittersweet. It was nice to see those guys. They were childhood friends of Cannon when they were in elementary school and middle school and stuff. But I think that I have learned in this process that how to channel some things, how to put it away. One of the hardest things, and I know you watch. I watch the moms that are doing it. Is you want to keep your child's memory alive, and they did so many things, and you cherish it, and at the same time, you don't want to take away from the people that are living the moment, if that makes sense. So I didn't want anything over the last 3 years for me to take away any moment. I only ever walked into high school one time. That was the night that we got the state championship rings.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to go, and at the last second, I was sitting at the house alone. You guys went over because you were going to represent Cannon, and I thought to myself, he earned that ring. Nobody else should. I'm going to go get his damn ring. I'm going to go get my ring because that shit was more than baseball. That is what high school sports was. That was our moment. That was our time. So I walked into high school. They announced his name. I got his ring. I got my ring, and I walked right back out of the gym. And I never once stepped foot into high school again. So
That's the same night we got Pearl.
the same night we got a dog, yeah. And I said to myself and think now, when graduation night, I'm driving home. I look to my right. There's the high school.
Yeah.
So did I want? Do I miss his moments? Do I miss his things? The one thing, and I have channeled with that this year, it's my faith. I hate that we're missing him, but it's our miss.
Yeah.
His miss is, where he's at, and his faith allowed him to go to a place that's a heck of a lot better than where we're at. So a graduation is our time. Where he's at, we're all striving to live a life the way one day we can have that moment. But, you try to put faith, and you try to put the understanding, and you put other people's lives into perspective. I don't want to go to the high school on a night where, I had kids that I coached Jacob Faith. Like I said, we gave it to the Hoover girl and Dylan Share, and I don't want to bring sadness back to this community. It was a happiness and a moment of people finishing a journey and doing their thing. And to all the graduates throughout the country, congrats, off to the next thing and on to better things. But I hope you cherish, that time and because like we just said, you take it for granted and you like, hell, I want to get out of this school and I want to get out of this town. And I know, now I look back and I would love to see Cannon finish the 10th grade. I would have loved to seen him walk or what's next at Rutger or wherever he ended up. I would love to see all that, but it's not our journey. But trust me, to all you parents out there that are going through that, I feel your pain when we take a family picture now and we're missing this person, or we have dinner at Christmas and you're missing that person, or graduation night. Maybe it was a somber night here, but you figure it out and you make sure. I think one of my roles is I make sure everybody else is good.
Yeah.
Megan is I want to make sure you're good. Kate is good, and we've all done that, and I know other people have as well. But grief's tough, and those are the kind of moments that make us, they stick you in the heart when you think you got it, somebody sweeps your feet out from under you.
Did you see that Dan Quinn was at Salisbury's graduation?
I watched it. I listened to his.
I didn't know he graduated.
I listened to it. He met his wife there. I think he said he met his wife there. And it was kind of neat what he did at the end. But that goes to show you, all you guys that's going into travel ball and you think, I got to go D1, I got to do this. Dan Quinn went to Salisbury.
Yeah.
Dan Quinn's about to roll. I mean, that guy can coach. That guy's a motivator. And you think
Tim
Daniels
Corbin.
gives a shit that he went to Salisbury?
Nah.
Let's go to work. Let's go to work. Yeah, look at Mike Tomlin. Look at That just shows you respect and the grind. And coaches like that start and they know where they've been and they know where they're at and they can appreciate the whole damn trip.
Yeah, and I had no idea until I saw that speech that he graduated from Salisbury.
No, and neither did I.
Going off that, do you, before we get into our sports segment of things, do you have any advice for the kids graduating and moving on into a different stage of life? Obviously, it can be scary whether you're going from high school to college into a real world.
Well, let's talk on the athletic side. Most of you if you're going to go to college right now, you just went from the penthouse to the shit house. That's about the best I can put it. Unless you're one of the 1% of the country that's going to walk in and have a starting role. I'm watching Arms 94, 96 that can't get out of the innings. Listen to football, preseason, and all those things. That's where the grind that we're talking about at 12, 13, and 14, quit worrying about the winning and understand the process. Teach them how to, one of the biggest overlooked things going in next year to freshmen is understand your diet, understand your sleep, understand what is important. Even though you're an athlete there or going into college just to be a college student, understand priorities.
Sleeping routine.
That Cam, that is the number one thing. And if you break your routine, you're kind of into you don't want to go through athletics like that. You need to find what works and then build on it. Don't skip your sleep to be running around because your roommates are running around, because once again, it's a race to the end. It's not a sprint at the beginning. And make sure that here's some things that's going to happen. You're going to get homesick. If you say you're not, there's always those days where you have a tough day. Call parents. My mom has passed, but the one thing I am thankful for, that I called her every night. When my mom was passed away, went through her things, and I found her phone bill, which I think I've said before was like $400, and I was like, we had a 1-800 number. My dumb ass thought since we had a 1-800 number, it was free. It was 1-800, so I could call her at any time. She still had to buy the 1-800. So those are the things, but she's gone now, and some of the things I've told I have no qualm of telling you that when I was in Florida, I called my mom every night. We checked in, just if it was 30 seconds to a minute, so keep in touch with your parents. Understand don't get caught up in something you don't want, make better decisions, but it's a 4-year run. It is not a 1-year run, but I will tell you this, and I know people say it all the time, it will be the best years of your life. Where else can you not really have to worry about anything that your parents have already provided, but it also is the first time in your life where you're now responsible for money, because your education costs something. And if you piss it away, you still are going to have a bill, or you pissed away an opportunity to make yourself higher financially in this world. So, and respect it. And when you're done, we said this last week, when you're done, you're not my kid by blood. But I know when we were at your graduation and you walked across, I was proud of you. I could tell your mom and dad were ecstatic of you. And that, I think if you're going to start college, that's something, your parents didn't know this, but I kind of just, Kata hasn't graduated yet. I'm not going to see Cannon graduate. So that was the first time I was at a college graduation since me. Just watching out of the corner of my eye with your two parents and seeing that, an exhale, but a proud moment, and a moment that, and what else it does? It allows, your family grew that day. And, that's part of things in the college ranks that we didn't see. And no matter what you do the rest of your life, you're a college graduate. Yeah. They can't take that from you.
And I think biggest thing that helped whenever I went to college was you kind of find like you see a lot of the freshmen go with who they think are like the so-called cool guys of the team or whatever, but like find your guys, and it helps you stick to a routine. Like I found my 2 guys, and we would always we'd hit, lift, same time, build a routine, and then just find your group. You don't got to go fit in with people that you normally wouldn't fit in with. I know in college you kind of sometimes.
You don't have to. And embrace those around you. Like last week, Coach Price. If anybody watched that, that's you called it full circle or something, but embrace those around you. Quit only focusing on a one. If I would have went to another college or been pissed about the first 12 or 15 games, I would have missed that. Yeah. And he's worth millions of dollars to me. I can tell you that right now. And don't miss those. And I'm leaving tomorrow and talking about vacation, and I'm going to see my college buddies, and run into them and things like that. And life turns, things change, but take the time and reflect what you have around you, because it's a 4-year gauntlet run, but it happens quick.
Yeah, and never did I think that you having a connection with Coach Price would lead to me. I mean, I text him every week.
So does Kata, and I know my buddy still does, and I don't even know if Dave threw a ton of innings there, but when we go to Florida, Coach will run into him. Dave asks about him, because they are genuine relationships that you build over time, and, he embraces people, but everybody has that opportunity. It's what you make of it with the people you surround yourself with. Yeah.
All right, getting into segment number 3 is our sports segment. We couldn't really talk about anything other than the Pacers, obviously, up 1-0 right now. Games just turned on as we speak of Game 2. They're up 1-0, but Tyrese Haliburton has 4 game winners, one in at least in each series, could get another one. And his celebrations have been phenomenal.
You like that shit.
Phenomenal. I thought the one from the Major League movie was great.
I didn't even see
in Cleveland.
Oh, when he did the things, yes.
Yeah, he that one, and then whenever he did the Reggie Miller and.
Well, I was growing up. Reggie Miller was my guy. We were in the skinny guy club on the basketball court, so he was the kind of guy I liked. But when he did that at New York, you were too young to remember that.
But yeah, I didn't see that. I just seen the videos.
When he hit Spike Lee with that, and then What is it?
Halliburton.
Halliburton did that. You texted me immediately, and you were like, "This guy," and I just had to chuckle. But he's a straight assassin. I mean,
Well,
he's everything you want.
That and then the Stanley Cup Finals is insane. McDavid's insane, and the Florida team's just magnificent.
He's generational. But getting back to the basketball, we're always hunting people that we want to. There's a guy that made the Olympic team and didn't play.
Yeah.
Now he could have pouted. He could have made himself an ass.
Well, and it was all over the news about him, Tatum.
Yeah, they didn't play.
Weren't playing.
And he didn't make the All-Star team.
No.
So, he has a million reasons to pout. If you got a young kid, tune into this guy because what's he always doing? Smiling.
Yeah.
They say he works nonstop. You never hear him bad-mouthing anybody. He doesn't, even though he hit the shot and did his thing, I think the guy
He's so humble about his moment that he had.
And he puts on a hard hat. He goes to work. He plays defense. He sees the floor. And at the end of the day, when the game's over, if you watch him, he does all the interviews. There's people coming up to him. He plays the game the right way. If you have, we just talked about he didn't make the All-Star team. How many kids last week looked on a piece of paper that some coach in Little League picked 4 of his best friends, 2 of his coach's buddies, and skipped the kid? Hey, if you were the kid that got skipped in the All-Stars, turn on tonight and watch that guy, because so did he. He also made it a team that he didn't get to play. Didn't pout, didn't say anything. But you know what he probably said? I'm going to get your ass one at a time. And he has picked each one of them off.
He even embraced it by posting on Twitter after they won. And he was like, if you guys are going to make these jokes, I'll embrace it. I'm the kid that did nothing and got an A on the group project. But he has a gold medal.
He's got a gold medal, and he still had to go through. He went through the Olympic trials.
Yeah.
He did everything. It's just Steve Kerr, it was Kerr, right?
Yeah.
Made a decision that he didn't fit into the scheme. Oh, my. A coach that made a decision that this guy doesn't fit in the scheme, but you're coming along for the ride. You didn't miss. I'll guarantee you he's strapped up in practice.
And he'll probably
Did
play
you see
the
him
next
cheering
Olympics.
for them?
Yeah.
He busts his ass, and he'll get his turn. But at the end of the day, you don't have to play to be in the seat, And that's what I think we get so damn overlooked of is – what is it? You went to college. There was guys that didn't play, but you know what they are? They're college athletes that made it 4 years. How many guys make it 4 years? Very few.
Not a lot.
Very few.
Whenever you really get
less than 3% of every little leaguer that comes out every year in travel ball. 3% of them play. 3% of them play college baseball or whatever that sport is. In Division I think it's like 1%.
And you don't realize until you're in it, how many really just give up and just quit right away.
Well, shut it down. And how many kids this year in the All-Stars, when they're the 11th or 12th, the dad's going to be like, screw this. I'm going to miss my vacation for you to set the bench. We're not going on the next tournament.
Yeah. And Halliburton, he can go and you'll watch one night, he'll have 12 points, but he has a triple-double, and then whenever he knows the team needs him, he'll go drop the 35-piece.
And, I don't know everything about it, but they don't have no damn business being in any of those games with what's going on with the Thunder. They don't have none.
They're comparing this run, Carlisle, because he was with the 2011 Mavericks that had no place being and beating that Heat team. He's the same coach for the Pacers right now.
Man.
Yeah.
Dude, he can just coach.
And he has them believing. Because they play if they didn't play until the final whistle or the final buzzer, they would never even be in the finals.
Agree.
Because they've been down multiple times.
What's every coach want you to do? Buy in.
Yeah,
what have they done?
They've bought in.
They bought in.
And it just, obviously, it took to begin a few good shots and everything from Halliburton. It builds confidence, and then you see Carlisle's playing.
Well, look at nothing against the Thunder because they're the same. They've bought in. They're a bunch of young kids running around, and they look at their camaraderie, and you watch them. These are 2 fun teams, and you know what's great about it? Yeah, there's a lot of money on that, but they're not a 3. They're all young. They're finding their place, but they play and they play hard. And when the game's over, it's over. And if you're a young person that didn't know, you wouldn't really even know him or the guy that was MVP for the Thunder.
Oh yeah.
So those. This is one of those series where let's go to work, see which team's the best, and if they don't win another game, which they're projected not to. I'll put my, I'm not betting against that guy tonight.
Against him. No
shot.
He's been ridiculous.
No shot.
And I'm not going to lie, I'm rooting for the Pacers just for the sheer fact that they don't belong in it.
They don't. I'm not a guy that sets and picks a team. Around here you root for the Wizards, and that's just to hope they get a lottery pick, which they didn't again this year. But it's fun to watch both of them, but he's hard to root against right now.
Yeah, he's one of those guys you have to love having on your team.
Yep.
And then he even said, thought it was funny because everybody was saying free pops, and he came on. He was like, guys, he's in a mansion, living a great life,
Yeah.
watching NBA Finals. He ain't in prison.
Yeah.
That was my funny moment. He just takes, although obviously that was an embarrassment moment for his dad and everything. He just takes the moment and it's like, hey, he's learned from it, but he's fine. Like even he wasn't too worried about him being at the game.
No, he said he can't control his dad.
Yeah.
And at that level, you got to sit and think to yourself, even at that level, you still got that shit going on with parents, and it makes you scratch your head. But what is he, 23?
He's probably a little older, but
So,
mid-20s.
And he's not in control of his dad, and that's just kind of part of it, and you see that. But still, he did handle that with grace.
Yeah. All right, now we're getting to the favorite Mark's Minute. So I'm going to go ahead and shut up and let Mark have his time, and then we're going to get into the conclusion of this episode.
Well, I had some sad news last week. I've been teaching at an elementary school in the area for 20 years, and I had a rider die, and she was you would consider her a pillar in our school, and she was a pillar in the community. My friend's name was Jocelyn Summer. She was our social worker at the elementary school. And I think sometimes we're doing a podcast about sports, and we're doing a podcast about, you look at people. We look at I can sit here and name Halliburton and Kyle Ripken and Ken Griffey Jr. I can go on when I was a child, and then now you got Otani and Judge, and we make these people bigger than they actually are because we don't know them. But I know that she was somebody that she was maybe at most 5 foot, and she was a pillar. And sometimes we put people up on pedestals and we forget about those that are growing, the youth and the society. She walked into a school, and as a social worker, a counselor, you're dealing with kids that need that you can't say anything about, and you're not only accepting the stress at your home, you're accepting the stress in that school, and those kids need people like this. And she passed away unexpectedly, and it was a shock to the public. It was a shock to the school. But most importantly, I think that we need to set and think about that. Those are the kind of people that maybe we take for granted, and then when they're gone, we don't realize the impact that they bring. And I'm going to miss her friendship. I'm going to miss her walking in and yelling. I'm going to miss watching her do her thing when a kid was struggling that day and just needed something that only she could provide. And I think as a whole, I hope that we start to appreciate that those are the people that are keeping us moving forward in the education system. Those are the people. Mental health is an incredible thing going on right now in the world, and she was a frontline soldier of it. And it was a hit to our community. I want to let her family know that they're always in our thoughts and prayers. And to her kids, your mom was a warrior, and I hope I can give as much to the youth over the rest of my time that she has. And she's in bigger and better places. I said to her, if when you run into Cannon, give him a hug for me, and good luck to your next one, and to her family. Very well missed, and prayers up to you guys. And that's one of those things where I hope we all realize that you don't have to be 7 foot and dunk a basketball to be an MVP in society.
Yeah, and obviously, whenever this episode releases, it's going to be, I believe, it's going to be Friday, so a few days before Father's Day. So I wanted to go ahead and say thank you to my father. Love him, everything. If you wanted to go ahead, give a little shout out to your dad and whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there's one of those bittersweet moments on, Father's Day. I struggle with that day because now I'm a dad.
Yeah.
And, and I struggle because I'm missing Cannon. Kata is, she's, and then I got you and Kendra now in my life, and I'm blessed with that. But it's one of those bittersweet moments. Every Father's Day, my old man chewed Red Man tobacco. Half of it was down his chin, half of it on the car seat. And then he had this big chew. If you look at the pictures of KMS, you can see out of that side was his picture. That's a chew of tobacco. So I kind of chuckle, but I always take a pack of Redmond and set it on the grave. And he and I have a chat. And he don't have much to say back, but it's one of those moments. So to all the fathers out there, what a great opportunity, what a great honor you have. And I hope you've taken advantage of that. I truly do. I know there's kids out there that say, that their father maybe didn't do this or didn't do that. Well, hopefully you get an opportunity then, because being a dad is probably the greatest thing any man can can have that opportunity. And you have a good one there. And so to all those dads and to all the dads that have been in my life that I didn't call dad, happy Father's Day.
Yeah, so ending it up with Happy Father's Day to my dad, and like I said, I never thought. It's funny how life brings you things. I never thought I'd have a second dad or whatever, and let alone it being you. So, Happy Father's Day to you
Lucky
too,
me.
and everything. So, but you never really know. I know I joke around like Big Bender, we call our third dad and whatever.
There's another guy.
You have a whole bunch of guys that are just, even though they may not officially be your dad or whatnot. Like I'm fortunate to have two great father figures. There's many others out there that help shape because they just know what it's like for kids that don't have a dad or anything like that. They get it. So to all those guys out there, Happy Father's Day to you as well. But other than that, you got anything as we wrap up the episode?
Nope. I put that up there this week. There was a group of kids in Washington County that made those. So I was cleaning my office out. I'm switching jobs, going to a different school, going back to my alma mater at Clear Springs. So I thought it was a good thing. I saw it and I thought, you know what? So to all you out there struggling or going through whatever you're going through, make sure you stay the course. And our theory here is live a lion life, and let's do it until we meet again.
Yeah, like he said, live a lion's life and be a lion. And other than that, we'll see you on next episode where we'll have a guest. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.